Howdy traveling neighbors, Ian with eTrailer here. Today we're going to be taking a look at the Roadmaster Comfort Ride suspension kit with shocks. And this will be put on our 2023 East West Ahara. Let's get into a couple features of that and then the install. These shocks are going to be a great upgrade to either your camper or utility trailer. Just something that feels a little rough in the ride behind you. This particular camper we're under had 7 leaf springs on each axle end, so a really stiff ride when it's going down the road. It's not a very heavy camper by any means, and so these shocks are just going to help absorb a little bit more of that blow while you're headed down the road. This kit is intended for a 3-inch round axle. There are some other options as far as the other axles, so make sure you're grabbing the right one. They are up to 6,000 pounds on the weight capacity, so I believe that's per shock, so that's going to allow you to get that good, comfortable ride headed down the road. And then they are going to also come in a set of 4, so that way you just have to get the one kit for the tandem axle trailers. Now this is a very involved install. These brackets up top are going to have some self-tappers going straight into the frame, so that can be a little intimidating of getting all that lined up. And I'm going to walk you through that process for all those DIYers out there, but if it's not something you feel like tackling after watching one of our videos here, go ahead and check out the dealer locator on our website. That's going to help you find a trained professional to put these on. So that way you don't have to try to tackle it. But if it is something you feel like hopping into, let's go ahead and get into that install and throw that on. It will be easier with the wheels off. We've already got the wheels and our brake assemblies off. We're going to be doing brakes here on the neighbor's vehicle as well as our Comfort Ride system. So it just makes it a little easier to get to everything if that's out of the way, but you can do it with the brake system still on. You'll just want to remove the wheels to make it easier to access everything else. Now we are going to start with our 3/4 nuts on top of the U-bolts that are there, and we'll remove those. You want to make sure your axle is supported as you're coming out with the other nuts. We're going to be putting these brackets where the old bracket used to live. You'll just want to make sure this extended part with the 2 bolt holes is facing in towards the vehicle and also towards the center of our 2 axles. And now you can reuse the bracket that it was originally attached to, or you have the option to leave that bracket off. For this one, we're going to be leaving it off because we just had enough room with the new set of U-bolts to get that on, and we'll add our washers. Then we're going to add our U-bolts. We'll just drop on a washer and then finger tight one of the nuts on top of that. And we'll repeat the same process on that rear U-bolt, and of course mirroring all of those on each wheel end. Now the instructions are clear on whether you've got underslung or overslung springs. In our case we do have the overslung, so they are above the axle. It does specify which holes on the extension plate you will need to use. 2 bolts through the holes, and then use the lock nut with the white coating on the inside on the back. We'll just get those finger tight. Tighten down the U-bolts. We're torquing those to the specifications in the instructions. What we're going to want to do with that is kind of hop between each 4 just to keep good even pressure between all of them. And what we want to do while we're tightening these is try to get the ends of them as even as possible. Now we're going to take one of the long bolts, add on one of the provided washers, and that's going to be fed through the outside of the extension bracket. And then from the extension bracket, we will start with the spacer, followed by another washer. And then we're going to be using the bottom end of the spring here, and that will just feed onto that, followed by another washer, and then just hand tight with one of the lock nuts with the blue interior. Now you will need to make sure your extension bracket is tightened up. Just follow the torque spec for those 2 bolts there. Now we do have a brake line in the way for us, but just ignore that at the moment. But we're gonna look at the bracket that we've put on the end of our shock at the top here. What we're looking for is there should be the shock with the strap on it is going to be 14.5 inches, so that's giving our distance of travel of what it will be at its fully compressed state. And once we get that lined up right with the edge, we're also looking for a 30-degree angle from the bottom extension bracket up. So what I like to do is get that a nice dark mark with a black paint pen, and then you can come back either with a punch or you can just make a mark with something dead center, so that way we've got our points of center. And then we'll need to get the weight of the trailer back off of our springs. That way we can run a drill bit through here. We're going to start really small just so we can get through the I-beam. We'll drill out each of those holes for pilot holes. These self-tappers are what's going to be holding this upper bracket on. And so I just used bits until I was just below the diameter of our self-tappers here, and then mounted all 4 of those up accordingly. And then at the top of the shock, to be able to have all that connected to the bracket, you can kind of go 2 ways about it. You can either have the bracket mounted up and then slide the top end of the shock over the stud here, or you can have the whole assembly together, hold all of it into place, cut that band, and then that'll allow you to get the bracket into place to get those self-tappers where they need to be. But either way, you can have that off because the shock's not too aggressive to the point where you won't be able to compress it and get it back onto the stud if you go a little bit too far. The last thing we'll want to do is go through, tighten up all of our hardware at the shock, and then torque that to the specifications shown in the instruction manual. Now we just need to go through and make sure we torque all those lug nuts to the manufacturer specifications. And we'll use that same star pattern that we took it down with. And that's going to do for our look at and installation of the Roadmaster Comfort Ride leaf spring kit with shock absorbers on our 2023 East to West Ahara. My name's Ian with eTrailer. Appreciate you watching.